Viewers, once again it's Paul Taremwa, NRM Online TV. We continue telling the truth as it is, and today we are very privileged to host Mr. Rwakakamba Morrison, a very enterprising youth, in every sense of the word, literally. Mr. Rwakakamba Morrison, very welcome to the show. Thank you for allowing us to host you. Now, to start off, we've been borrowing to build Isimba Dam, which has been commissioned yesterday by the President, the Entebbe Express Highway, and it seems the national debt burden is increasing by the year. Should the youth and the future of this nation be worried? Is it at stake? Should we be worried? You as someone who has been in all these corners, what do you think?
Well, first of all, let me clear this. I don't think I'm a youth anymore because I'm turning 40 this year. So I'm slowly by slowly, I'm really very much out of this youth age bracket. But I think the issue of the debt burden across the world has been a major issue. For countries like the United States, you find that debt as a percentage of their GDP is almost 90%. They have even remained, but the economy remains strong and sustainable. On the African continent, everywhere you go, it is the debt, it is the Chinese debt, it is, the debt. But I think Ugandans should not really get worried, because I think the question that Ugandans should be asking themselves is, what are we borrowing for as a nation state? If that one is answered, are we borrowing, for example, buy luxury cars? Are we borrowing to import perfumes? Are we borrowing to host the Bivuro? Not at all. But we are borrowing through the legal and professional channels and parliament endorsement to be able to build roads, to be able to expand services. And you just mentioned Isimba, 183 megawatts launched yesterday, switched on by the President yesterday. Karuma, Bujagari. And now, as we speak, Uganda has reached the prime of over 1,000 megawatts, which is huge, meaning that our installed capacity in terms of electricity has gone high, which therefore means that the price point, per unit kilowatt of electricity is going to go down, meaning that manufacturers, meaning that industrialists are going to, are going to manage the costs in terms of production. Because if you look at the entire nodes of production within manufacturing, the highest cost node is electricity. So if you want to have factories, if you want to have industries, if you want to even expand services to ensure that electricity is on in offices, internet is not going down, those who are writing proposals, those who are writing reports, those who are submitting tax returns, those who are doing everything keep working, it increases the productivity. It increases the number of jobs. It increases the country's exports, and it increases our capacity to really pay back. So I think that our national debt is sustainable and it can redeem itself. That's point number one. Point number two is, you look, what are the terms? When we are borrowing, what are the terms? Do we ask ourselves that question? It's extremely very important. And if you look at all the debt stock, Uganda's debt stock, 80% of that debt stock is concessional, meaning that the interest rate is less than 1% and payable with a huge grace period and payable over 40 years. So meaning our debt stock is sustainable because it has been well negotiated concessionally. So that's really extremely very important. And for a country to be in the red zone, within the EAC it is 50% as a percentage of GDP. But globally it is when you are above 60%. And Uganda's debt as a ratio to its GDP is still below 40%. So So all this, I think, harbor around the debt, around that, we are, putting a chain on the necks of Ugandans. I think we are selling Uganda. I think all that is disruptive propaganda. It is short-termist, and I think those vending that kind of narrative, it's not because that they don't know. They are doing it to win political points, and I think it is shameful. But as a country, the citizens of Uganda cannot be objectified. They have eyes, they can see, they have the ability to discern. So I think citizens of Uganda, when they see these roads, when they see health centers, whether health center 3s or health center 4s, being worked on, when they see financing into agriculture going on, and I hope, like the Chankwanzi and the Chankwanzi meeting and what the president has said, if the interest rates go down, young people are able to borrow, women groups are able to borrow at sustainable interest rates. If banks are pushed to lower down their interest rates and make the price of money affordable, that's how we stimulate business. If small scale and medium enterprises, keep mushrooming and becoming sustainable, taking on 2 jobs, 4 jobs, 5 jobs, 20 jobs, 100 jobs, and expand, that's what you need. And the biggest constraint has been interest rates. And with the coming in of all this, I think we're going to be sustainable.
Wonderful. I can't stop even smiling looking at how I feel like I don't know anything right now. Rwakakamba Morrison, one of the greatest minds we have in Uganda, he tells you, the youth out there, the national debt, whatever the opposition has been saying, we are selling Uganda, it is wrong, we shouldn't be worried. Now moving a bit to the political side. There's been an influx of artists, singers, comedians, into the political arena. Is this a good sign for our country, or we are headed to the negative side of it?
First of all, Uganda is democracy. So if you qualify in terms of all elements, if you are 18 years and above, if you have the requisite qualifications in terms of education, I think everybody has a right to aspire to be anything in this country. And I think that the democracy and the ideal democracy is that. So I think we have to thank the national resistance movement for creating the political environment to allow those who have the agency and believe in themselves that they can present themselves for office, whether they are artists, whether they are artisans, whether they are farmers, whether they are preachers, whether they are comedians. As long as they believe that Ugandans are going to trust their program, I think they should exercise their constitutional right and run for office. But the other point is, I think Uganda has been extremely politicized because you have all these so many radios across the country. Now you have the internet and you have all these contestations and conversations. You have different mediums and televisions, including yourselves now, the online, trying to reach out to the population. So we have a conscious population, whose conscience has been stimulated, whose imagination has been stimulated because of listening to many voices. So that delivers one important outcome. So that one important outcome is that the population can no longer be taken for granted. They are aware. They know what works for them. They know that there is a difference between being a musician and singing, a difference between being a musician and the difference between being a political manager and a titulator of a vision and a titulator of public affairs. So I think some musicians are making a mistake to think that because people like their music, that they are also going to like their politics. No. The other day I was telling Bobi Wine fans who have been abusing me so much that I actually like Bobi Wine's music, for example, and that if I was invited to vote for his music, if he was standing for these MTV awards, I would gladly vote for him. But I cannot vote him for president of Uganda because he has not articulated a vision that is going to solve the problems of Uganda. What are the problems of Uganda? People are concerned about jobs. What is his program on jobs? People are concerned about healthcare. What is his program on healthcare? People are concerned about quality education, apprenticeship, skills. What is his plan of building a robust a robust human resource. People are concerned about how to stimulate technology to make sure that it is in every part of the country and that it is stimulating progress. The other day, President Museveni was in Davos, in Switzerland, speaking about artificial intelligence, speaking about Internet of Things and how we must ethically manage the technology to make sure that it delivers. What is Bobi Wine's no rebut on that? What is his point of view? A lot of things have been going on. The Data Protection Act has been passed in Parliament. The Investment Code has been passed in Parliament. Well, look at the Hansard. What is his contribution on some of those important public policy matters? So yes, it's okay for musicians, for comedians, for preachers, for lumberjacks, for farmers to be interested in public affairs, because that's democracy. But now Ugandans are no longer at crossroads, because they have been conscientized enough, they have the information, they have the capability to discern between a talent of playing football, a talent of singing and dancing, but also the concreteness and capacity of managing public affairs and deliver public goods. And I think that President Museveni and the NRM have demonstrated. Yesterday he was launching 183 megawatts of electricity. He has articulated a program. At the starting of his term, 2016-2021, he gave his ministers strategic guidelines and directives and key performance indicators in different sectors to be able to achieve for the people of Uganda. Now, I would want to have a conversation, for example, with all these actors who are questioning NRM. If they were asking how far have you gone with the implementation of what you promised, that's a good debate. That's a good debate to have. That's a good conversation to have. But this sloganeering that has been going on, we want freedom, we want them, but yes, but also freedom to participate in public affairs, freedom to organize. So that's the debate, that's the conversation that we should be having as a country. And I'm happy that young people are deeply embedded and involved.
Wow, that's a plus to the NRM government and President Yoweri Museveni. From Rwakakamba Morrison, who has been in education, who has been in agriculture and definitely in politics, he's telling you what it is, the truth as it is. Now, speaking of agriculture, you ventured into agriculture as a youth. Are you still in agriculture?
Yes.
Okay, fine. As a practitioner. Perfect. Now, for the young people, because the president has been talking about the youth joining agriculture, modernizing agriculture. What's your advice to the young people who might want to join agriculture?
I would say not even just young people, really, because I don't think we should construct the debate, because only for young people. But I think there are a lot of opportunities that young people, that men, that women, entrepreneurs can pitch into the agriculture sector. And look at it from a commercial sense. Look at it from the intensification perspective. That if your mom or if your dad was using 1 acre to produce, 1 ton of coffee, with the knowledge that you have as a young person, you should be able to use that same acreage and be able to, get, for example, 2, 3, 4 tons. At least you should be able to double that, because as young people we have more access to information, more access to referral and the advisory services that we can be able to access. We can even Google and know the best practices. Last weekend I was visiting a friend of mine who has come up, from the internet, with interesting feeding troughs, for his indoor cows. And he got the advice from internet, and he has managed to increase his milk yield, with the kind of of the troughs, and then how he mixes the food portions, has been able to increase his milk yield by over 40%. He didn't even go to NADS, he didn't go to NARO, he didn't go to extension workers, but he managed to get the information on the internet. So the opportunities that our parents had now have more than tripled, So young people, I really encourage them to be imaginative. I encourage them to do research. I encourage them, to take progress, first of all, figure themselves out internally, to be ready for the challenge, but not to look at the externalities, government, or those who think Bobi Wine is, I have seen people trying to look at him as the messiah, not knowing that it has to be first inside themselves to be the change that they seek before they can get change from externalities. So, sorry for digressing, but to your point about the farming, it's that young people, women, entrepreneurs, and men now need to look at agriculture from the value chain perspective. Know that there are opportunities, for example, at the preparation for production, where you need what kind of breed, what kind of seeds do you need, for example, what kind of planting materials. There are a lot of opportunities there, and there are so many young people who have benefited in raising nursery beds and breeding and selling to different people. Then you go to production. Production is another area. You can go into production, whether you're growing coffee, whether you're growing citrus, whether if you don't have land, whether you are involved in mushrooms. There is urban farming. People now want to be healthier. They want vegetables. You don't need a chunk of land to grow vegetables. There is so much going on around that sector. There are so many people who are quiet, who are doing a lot of these things, who are earning money, who are not making noise. That's at the production level. But then there is also the storage level. If you have a store, if you have 4 rooms, maybe you can use 1 room, for storage. You can create, you can get involved in technologies that would allow storage. I've seen the World Food Program and some other entrepreneurs who have managed to create some silos that are very interesting, using sacks, but they, that can be vacuumed in order to store cereals for even 5 to 10 years. So there are all these technologies coming up. So there are opportunities there for young people. There is the logistics, moving inputs to farmers, but also moving outputs to the market. So logistics around that. Are you in the transportation of goods? Are you involved in creating the connection? There are all those. Then there is exporting, there is packaging. So looking at it from the value chain perspective, then you figure yourself. If you are an IT person, for example, you are now running an online media, you could be part of people who are marketing certain products using your platform. That's participating in agriculture, but at a different level of the value chain. So I think the future is in clearly scrutinizing the nodes of the agricultural value chain and figuring out where you want to position yourself. And when we're talking about IT, when we're talking about technology, when we're talking about all these things, they actually converge to make that business work. So we cannot look at agriculture and silo it. It needs roads, it needs technology, it needs irrigation, it needs all these aspects. And where you see all that, those are opportunities. Those are opportunities that young people, that women, that men, that old folks like us can participate in. Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful input. But do you think, as you give it that perspective, is government doing enough to tell all this to the youth who want to get involved in agriculture?
I think there is really a lot of information, and I've seen the president, really moving around. The president is the most reported on personality in this country, and whatever he says, you have it syndicated, really, not just in Uganda but across the world. So, and with the ferment of information going on, I think that people are following that, and the president has been involved in a lot of work around agriculture. Beyond the wealth creation, he has even invested time and resources in creating more presidential model farms to kind of prove his concept of the 4-acre model. And I think you should, one of these days, use your platform to visit some of those demonstration farms that really show that you don't need a lot of resources, but you need a lot of commitment and organization to be able to really deliver on that. So I think the message has been very clear. The message has been on. And now with the announcement of really, capping down the interest rates using Uganda Development Bank to be able to give to groups, but also entrepreneurs, whether they are young people, whether they are women, whether they are men, whether they are old, to be able to access those resources and create enterprise is very important. And of course, the other thing is there is the market. If you've studied economics, you know that Say's law of demand says that demand stimulates supply. There is so much demand, not just in Uganda, but across the East African community, but also across the world. People need to eat every day. People need to feed really every day. So that shows you that the demand, we are still a net rice importer, for example. We still import rice. We are still importing some types of fruits. We are still importing some certain types of foods. And the other aspect is that, Ugandans want to eat better. They still like the organics. If you go to our markets, even the local, the local demand is increasing because you have an increasing population. We have an urbanization rate of almost 4%, which is huge. So we are increasingly having less producers and more consumers. So where you see a market, you see a ready opportunity. So it's up to Ugandans, to leave around this aspect of Tusaba government at Yande and deep dive into the work of transforming their own selves, but transforming their neighborhoods and transforming the country and making a contribution. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rwakakamba. You see, I'm amazed at how informed you are. I'm definitely now off to do research, more research. Maybe I could learn from what he has done, and I'm definitely going to do that. And I advise the fellow youth out there, listen to these words of wisdom. As always, NRM Online TV, Paul Tarema, for God and my country.